Many people say that Luffy's Gear 4 is way better than Gear 5. It is supposed to be his ultimate form. But what if Gear 4 is the real safety net Oda doesn't want you to forget? Let's break down all the gears in his Nika form to really understand why some fans don't like Gear 5. At first glance, Luffy's Devil Fruit seemed pretty underwhelming. I mean rubber? That's it. In a world of magma, light, ice, and literal earthquakes, the ability to stretch like a balloon didn't exactly scream future Pirate King material. But what nobody realized, not even Luffy himself, is that his fruit was never about just rubber. It wasn't even the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Behind that simple name was something ancient, something dangerous, and something the world government literally tried to erase from history. Turns out, Luffy's Devil Fruit is actually the Hito Hito no Mi model. Nika, a mythical Zoan fruit that lets the user embody the power, freedom, and even the will of the Sun God himself. And the craziest part? Its true strength lies in imagination. The more creative Luffy gets, the more broken his powers become. But long before Gear 5 shattered reality itself, Luffy had to figure out how to push his rubber body to its absolute limits, and that's where the gears were born, and each one came at a cost. Luffy first used Gear 2 in Eni's lobby, and it honestly caught everyone off guard. One minute he was getting overwhelmed by CP9, and the next, he's literally pumping blood through his body so fast that steam starts coming off his skin. Like what? This wasn't just power. This was borderline self-destruction. Luffy figured out that if he used his rubbery veins to supercharge his blood flow, he could massively boost his strength, speed, and reflexes, even if it shaved years off his life. And here's the part people forget. This wasn't some power-up he trained for over time. He invented it on the fly in the middle of a life-or-death mission. That was the first time Luffy didn't just stretch, he transcended the rules of his own fruit. Gear 2 was the moment he started fighting like a monster, not just a pirate, and that was just the warm-up. Now Gear 3, this one was hilarious at first. Luffy bites his thumb, blows air into his bones like a balloon, and suddenly his limbs become the size of giants. Yeah, it looked kind of ridiculous, I won't lie. But the sheer destructive power? Wild. One punch could destroy buildings. Entire walls of the Marine headquarters cracked under his blows. But the real twist with Gear 3 wasn't just the power, it was the trade-off. After using it, Luffy would shrink down into a mini version of himself, totally vulnerable. It was the price of going that big. And early on, it made him reckless. He didn't have full control over the form, and sometimes it was more liability than weapon. Still, Gear 3 showed us something important. Luffy wasn't just stretching anymore. He was weaponizing his body like a machine, like a literal gear in motion. And once he mastered it, that drawback vanished. But then came Gear 4, and yeah, this is where things started getting absolutely unhinged. Gear 4 was like watching Luffy break every rule of his own power system. Rubber shouldn't be able to fly, right? Rubber shouldn't be able to tank hits from a Yonko commander, right? Yeah, well, welcome to Bounce Man, Luffy's fusion of haki, elasticity, and brute force. He compresses his muscles, coats his body in Byasashoku haki, and bounces through the air like a missile with infinite recoil. What's wild is how he tailored Gear 4 into different forms. Bounce Man for overwhelming strength and speed, Tank Man for defense and brute force, and Snakeman for fluid, speed-based fighting where his punches literally change direction mid-air. Each form was built for different enemies, different battlefields, and different purposes, but even this came with consequences. Gear 4 drains Luffy like crazy. The time limit is brutal. Once it ends, he can't even move. Or strength or haki, it gives him freedom. In Gear 5, Luffy doesn't follow the laws of physics, he follows his own imagination. His body becomes a conduit for whatever goofy, cartoonish, borderline absurd idea he wants to bring to life. Even Kaido was confused. He said it himself. This power is ridiculous. Gear 4 made Luffy a warrior. Gear 5 made him a myth. And if that sounds dramatic, just wait till you see what it means for the future of the story. In Gear 5, Luffy doesn't follow the laws of physics, he follows his own imagination. His body becomes a conduit for whatever goofy, cartoonish, borderline absurd idea he wants to bring to life. Even Kaido was confused. He said it himself. This power is ridiculous. Gear 4 made Luffy a warrior. Gear 5 made him a myth. And if that sounds dramatic, just wait till you see what it means for the future of the story. Let's break it down because it's more than just power scaling. Gear 4 is built on structure. It's Luffy weaponizing his body through muscle inflation, enhanced haki, and precise combat forms. It's tactical, it's limited by stamina, and it still operates under the physical rules of the One Piece world. It's powerful, but it's still bound by logic. Now, Gear 5, that's pure imagination unchained. It breaks the rules. It plays with the fourth wall. It doesn't just enhance Luffy, it turns him into a literal force of chaos. While Gear 4 relies on haki and training, Gear 5 is about awakening and liberation. One is a fighting style, the other is a cosmic-level ideology wrapped in a rubbery, laughing, lightning-throwing pirate. And visually, the contrast couldn't be bigger. Gear 4 looks intimidating. Huge muscles, glowing eyes, dark haki armor. Gear 5 looks light-hearted. White hair, squirrely eyebrows, playful aura. But the power gap? Massive. Gear 5 completely dominated Kaido, who earlier tanked every version of Gear 4 without even flinching. Gear 4 is like a machine. Gear 5 is like a dream. So if Gear 5 is supposed to be Luffy's peak, why does he still use Gear 4? You'd think once a character unlocks their strongest form, especially something as wild and world-shattering as Gear 5, they'd never go back, right? Like, what's the point of using anything else if you've reached God mode? But Luffy's situation is way more complicated than that because even after unlocking this mythical, reality-bending, imagination-fueled transformation known as Gear 5, he still goes back to using Gear 4 a lot, and not just in filler scenes or flashbacks. We're talking in actual important battles. And the reason for that? It's not because Gear 5 is weaker. It's actually way more powerful. But raw power isn't everything, not when you're trying to survive a drawn-out fight in a world where stamina, timing, and strategy matter just as much as strength. Gear 5 is ridiculous, but it comes at a cost, and that cost might just be the key to understanding why Gear 4 still has a major role to play. Let's get this straight. Gear 5 is broken, like completely and unapologetically broken. Once Luffy awakens the true nature of his devil fruit, he gains access to a form that lets him bend reality like it's a rubber band. He can deflect haki-infused club swings like he's made of air, and basically turn the laws of physics into his personal playground. But here's what most fans don't realize until they really pay attention. Luffy can't hold this form forever. In fact, every second he stays in Gear 5 is draining his stamina like a sink with the faucet left on full blast. His body is literally pushed to its limits. And while he's smiling and laughing through the pain, because that's the nature of Nika, it doesn't mean he's not breaking down from the inside. His quote says it all. "I think I can fight a bit longer. My heartbeat sounds so funny." He's literally acknowledging that even though this is the peak of what he can do, it's a flame that burns fast. Gear 5 might let him do everything he's ever dreamed of, but sometimes that freedom comes at the price of longevity, and this is where Gear 4 sneaks back in. So now let's talk about Gear 4. It doesn't have the cartoony absurdity or reality-breaking nonsense of Gear 5. It's more grounded. Well, as grounded as a form that lets Luffy bounce through the air and punch giant monsters in the face can be. But here's the thing, Gear 4 has structure. It has rules. Luffy knows exactly how long he can use it, how much haki it burns, and what his recovery time looks like. He's refined it over years. He has forms like Bounce Man, Snakeman, and Tank Man ready to go, and each one is tailored to specific combat situations. More importantly, Gear 4 doesn't completely obliterate his stamina the way Gear 5 does. Yes, it still has drawbacks. If he pushes too far, he'll run out of haki and collapse for a while. But in a drawn-out fight where pacing matters, Gear 4 might actually give Luffy more strategic breathing room than Gear 5. And yeah, there's been a lot of speculation that Luffy can actually maintain Gear 4 longer than Gear 5, simply because it's more refined and doesn't tax his awakening constantly. It's kind of like what Goku does in Dragon Ball. He could go Super Saiyan 3, sure, but that form drains his energy like crazy, so instead he sticks to Super Saiyan 2 unless he's desperate. Same logic here. Luffy doesn't always need to bend reality. Sometimes all he needs is a fast punch, a clever opening, and a form that won't completely wreck his insides, and that's why Gear 4 still gets love even when Gear 5 exists. But there's something else hiding underneath all this. There's another layer here that's more emotional than logical. A lot of fans still see Gear 4 as one of Luffy's most iconic transformations. Bounce Man with the intense hockey armor, the steam rolling off his shoulders, and those bone-crushing punches, that's the Luffy we watched grow into a top-tier new world contender. Gear 4 was the first time Luffy truly looked like a monster, not just some stretchy kid with guts. It felt serious, it felt earned, and honestly, Luffy himself might still feel some kind of connection to it. Gear 4 is what he created during his training. It was his answer to losing his crew, failing at sobriety, and promising to never be that weak again. It's his form. Gear may 5th have been awakened naturally as a result of Joy Boy's will and the true nature of the fruit. But Gear 4, that came from Luffy's own effort, his blood, sweat, and 2 years of brutal training. So maybe, just maybe, part of the reason he still uses it, besides strategy, is because it's still a piece of who he is. And if that's the case, then Gear 4 is never going away. But we're not done yet because there's one last possibility no one's talking about. Here's the wildest idea that's been floating around lately. What if Luffy could eventually merge the best of both worlds? Like, imagine a version of Gear 4 with the power and freedom of Gear 5, but without the extreme stamina drain. It's a stretch, pun fully intended, but it's not impossible. The more Luffy learns to control his awakening, the more potential there is for him to refine it, maybe even use it selectively, infusing bits of Nika's freedom into earlier gears without triggering the full transformation. It's been said by fans that we might eventually see a hybrid gear, a state where Luffy operates like Snakeman or Bounce Man, but can tap into the cartoon physics or reality warping of Gear 5 when needed. That way, he could conserve energy, stay tactical, and still unleash terrifying bursts of power in short intervals. And if that ever happens, if Luffy figures out how to bend the rules within the limits of his old forms, yeah, the balance of power in the world of One Piece is gonna shift again. Why do some fans hate Gear 5? We know that when Gear 5 was first revealed, the One Piece fandom practically exploded. Forums were on fire, YouTubers couldn't upload fast enough, and every corner of the internet was talking about how Luffy had just unlocked what looked like the most ridiculous, over-the-top Looney Tunes transformation we've ever seen in the series. And for a lot of people, that was the point. It was supposed to feel free, goofy, and chaotic in a way that no other power-up ever had. But not everyone was laughing because for a certain portion of fans, the moment that was supposed to be Luffy's god-tier evolution felt more like a tonal whiplash, a complete shift in vibe, almost like Oda had thrown the rule book out the window just to write a Saturday morning cartoon. And here's where things get really messy because it's not just about the cartoon physics, or the exaggerated animation style. What actually bothers a lot of fans runs way deeper than aesthetics. Some people feel like Gear 5 didn't just change how Luffy fights, it changed what his fruit even is, and that's where the controversy really begins. Because when it was revealed that the Gomu Gomu no Mi wasn't actually the Gomu Gomu no Mi, but was secretly a mythical Zoan fruit, the Hito Hito no Mi, Model Nika, that wasn't just a twist. That was a rewrite of everything we thought we knew. And yeah, for longtime readers who'd been following Luffy's journey from East Blue to Wano, this felt like Oda had retroactively changed the rules of the world, like the entire foundation of Luffy's power was never real in the first place. Some fans straight up call it a retcon, and honestly I get it. It's one thing to introduce new lore, but when it flips something we've known since Chapter 1 without super clear build-up, it can feel jarring. And while Oda did sprinkle in hints, like the world government being obsessed with that fruit, or the five elders acting shady when they talked about it, let's be real, the breadcrumbs were vague at best. There's still no concrete answer on how the awakening was triggered. Like, how did Luffy just become Joy Boy mid-fight after getting knocked out? No real training arc, no warning, just boom. He dies, his heartbeat starts dancing, and suddenly he's the god of freedom. And what's wild is that every previous gear had some kind of logic behind it. Gear 2, he figured out how to speed up his blood flow. Gear 3, bone inflation, giant limbs, super strength. Gear 4, mastery of Haki during the time skip. All of them were steps Luffy worked for. You saw the grind, you felt the growth. But Gear 5, it's like the story just skipped the montage entirely. No build-up, no effort, just spontaneous enlightenment. And some fans can't help but feel like the sheer scale of Gear 5, turning the ground into rubber, grabbing lightning, warping reality like a tune, it kinda breaks the balance of power. Like, if Luffy can do this, what can't he do now? It makes earlier fights feel almost too grounded, too basic, too normal, which raises another problem. If the rules keep changing, how do we stay invested in the stakes? But here's where things start getting interesting because not everyone agrees with the backlash. Some fans actually believe Gear 5 is a return to form, not a betrayal of the story. And what they say next might actually flip the whole argument on its head. But not everyone sees Gear 5 as a downgrade. In fact, for many fans, it's the most One Piece transformation Luffy's ever had. Supporters of Gear 5 argue that this form isn't just about raw power, it's about freedom. Gear 5 fully embraces Luffy's identity as the warrior of liberation, turning the battlefield into his personal cartoon playground. For a series that's always celebrated absurdity and heart over edgy power scaling, Gear 5 feels like the truest expression of what One Piece was always meant to be. And let's not forget, narratively it's brilliant. Luffy's entire journey is about breaking limits, not just physically, but thematically. Gear 5 doesn't just punch harder, it mocks the seriousness of evil. When Luffy turns Kaido's giant club into a balloon or makes his eyes pop out of his head in cartoonish horror, he's not just winning the fight, he's reclaiming control of the tone. The moment Gear 5 debuted, One Piece stopped trying to mimic other battle shonen and went full throttle into its own identity. Plus, this transformation ties deeply into the lore. It's not just a power-up, it's a myth. The Hito Hito no Mi, Model Nika, the Sun God fruit, isn't just a retcon to shake things up. It ties back to centuries of hidden history, Joy Boy, the Void Century, and even the world government's greatest fear. Gear 5 isn't random. It's the key to unlocking the deepest mysteries in the story. And visually, it's fresh, it's fluid. It brings out the best in animators and unleashes creativity in every frame. While some fans call it cartoonish, others see it as liberating, a rare case where a transformation isn't about glowing eyes and edgy power stances, but about joy. Pure, unfiltered, unchained joy. Gear 4 looked cool. Gear 5 is cool in a totally different way. But here's the catch. Even with all that praise, Gear 5 isn't the end-all be-all. Luffy still needs Gear 4, and there's a damn good reason why. Gear 5 might be his peak form, but it comes at a cost. It burns through stamina like crazy. The moment Luffy activates it, he's basically on a countdown. He's, ? His heartbeat's literally going wild with the drums of liberation. And if he overdoes it, we've seen him collapse mid-fight. That moment against Kaido where his body just shuts down, that wasn't for drama, it was a warning. Gear 5 is powerful, yes, but it's not sustainable in drawn-out battles or when Luffy needs precise, efficient attacks. This is where Gear 4 shines. Bound Man, Snake Man, Tank Man, each form has a purpose. Gear 4 gives Luffy controlled bursts of power, speed, and durability without relying on reality wah.